that, and that we can learn from their practice. And Mao talks about that there is two types of experience: the experience that you get directly from doing the experiment, but also the experience that you get from others doing the experiment. Nevertheless, the experiment itself is material, and then the results of it is translated into the consciousness of the minds, and then we learn from that to reapply it to the material world. And that's my answer.
Can you make it layman's, because the general population don't understand half the words you said? There's no offense. It's like, keep it layman's terms. But I agree what you said.
So, in normal words, when you do an experiment, when you do something, for example, and this is the example that Mao gives, is that you don't really know if a pear is a pear until you bite into a pear. This is when you change the word. You change the word of that pear by biting into it, by doing the practice of the bite itself, and then you change the word. And these experiences, when you get them into your mind and you observe them, you get information in your mind, and then that information is translated into theory that can go back and be reapplied into the real life again. So yeah,
That's excellent. That's really good. So do you want to go next? Or Levi?
Okay, so this question of, what's the specific question again?
Basically, okay, the revolutionaries in the past.
Okay,
yeah.
So my sense is that a lot of, this is going to be an oversimplification. World's a complex place, history is as well, but effectively, ultimately we believe we're all connected or we're not. And my sense is, to some degree, that all revolutionary movements, struggles, thinkers, from times past and present, have to some degree recognized and believe that we are all connected in some way, as well as interdependent.
Yeah.
And then the struggle ultimately then is to be, essentially, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
And what is it that instills meaning and a sense of purpose for humans to be free?
Yeah.
So, any given revolutionary struggle, from history to the present, I think has been undergirded by a recognition that we are interdependent, irrespective of race, nationality, creed, order, belief system, and that the motivating force and driving sense of connectedness is rooted in love. And I think that all proper revolutionaries who are discerning are experiencing, to some degree, an expression of love for all of humanity.
Yeah.
And then they start to diagnose the world, and they start to see a variety of different instances in which freedom is being suppressed, people are being discriminated against, exploited, dispossessed, displaced, and they are not going to sit idly by and allow that happen. So then, in any given unique circumstance, they, to me, are driven by a sentiment. The Zapatistas will say this: the revolutionary sentiment is love. Che Guevara talked about love being a driving force for revolutionary change. And so then it's effectively, we are not going to rest, and we are not going to, everyone is free.
Yeah.
And there is no perfect way or perfect sign we are, and think of the different your enemy. And you need to have an accurate diagnosis of the structural forces, the historical forces that are impinging upon people's freedom, as well as in committing injustices. And then I think in any given context, that's what revolutionaries are doing. They're engaging with each other. They're motivated and driven by love, as well as a sense of, in essence, humans must be free, and we're going to fight for that.
Yeah.
And then they band together and they start to communicate and organize amongst themselves about how do we make sure that we're fighting on the side of justice and advancing a cause that will bring about freedom. Now, the unfortunate reality is sometimes revolutionaries don't win. Sometimes they miss the mark. Sometimes their diagnosis is inaccurate. People, even revolutionaries, are fallible subjects. So we don't always get it right, or revolutionaries don't always get it right. But my sense is there's a recognition that the thing that the world needs to see is freedom. We're going to struggle from that. The world is a diverse, complicated place. We need to come together in the specific particular geographies that we're in and figure out how do we struggle for and advance freedom, knowing oftentimes too, and I think this is not necessarily something that we should see as failure. Sometimes revolutionaries are killed, sometimes revolutionary movements dissipate, but they came together to advance that struggle and effectively agreed amongst themselves, we need to do what? We need to make it count with respect to trying to advance freedom struggles all across the world. And I think that that's rooted deeply in a sense of love for all of humanity, as well as then to an aspiration to see everyone free, not just people you know or who are like you, but then across the world.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, and I kind of agree to both of them that.
Sorry, could you hold it? Because it's hard for me to see.
Yeah, and I kind of agree to both Levi and Elijah that that what I feel that many of the names that you were mentioning, like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, or I would even add Gandhi.
Yeah, definitely.
And several, and then there are
many?
several anti-colonial, and then anti-oppression revolutionaries across the world who I feel like what they saw is like what Levi was talking about is like unfreedoms.
Yeah.
That is, unfreedoms could be inequalities, injustices, oppressions, struggles along class. When it comes to India, we have caste struggles as well. So we are kind of there are struggles against hierarchies, like some who have extreme amounts of wealth and power while some don't. So they are kind of also talking about these extreme forms of inequities and not just inequalities. So I feel like what they did is that they identified early on, and why I feel that they are important, or revolutionary movements and revolutionaries to me are intriguing and significant, is because, and what I learned from them is like how they manage, and the reason they stick out or they were known as leaders is because they identified the systems of oppression, like what is not working, and what we need to find that we have, and that why, like along what was, like why is it unequal, and what is it that we are fighting against, like evils, social evils, so to say, like say racism or say sexism or say some of the problems that populations who are trans and intersex are faced with. So I feel like what they did is that they kind of made us aware of the systems of oppression, but they also made us aware of different forms of privileges that many of us have versus people who don't have. And I feel like that kind of helped me, like not only like understanding theoretically where they are coming from or what they have done or what they had to say, or understanding what they have done that has worked, but I also feel that what they have, like what I have taken from some of this is that what are the privileges that I have that I can use to voice or to fight for those who don't have those privileges. Like me as a migrant woman, for me, I felt my privilege was that I had, though I was precarious when I was living in Europe some time back, I had papers. I was documented migrant. And so,
What does that mean?
which means that I had, like if you had, like I had residency status, so which meant that I could work, versus those who did not have papers, they couldn't work. Or if they worked, they were working in the informal sector. So we are then talking about these extreme forms of precarity that people are faced with. and different kinds of active or passive forms of violence that they are faced with, from ordinary people, from the corporates, or from the state, because of oppressive policies. So I feel like when it comes to revolutionaries or revolutionary movements, or I broadly call them social movements, some of the key takeaways for me has been not just they made me understand systems of oppression, but they also made me aware of privileges. They made me aware of the importance of intersectionality. And
What
like
does intersectionality mean? I know it as a word if I take it apart.
intersectionality is like when you are like, it talks about different layers. Say for example, it talks about a person who is say for like what would be your privileges, or what kind of oppressions would you be faced with based on your social identity.
Yeah.
Like if I would identify myself as a woman, a migrant, as somebody who has citizenship status, someone who has a job, versus a woman who is migrant, who doesn't have a job, who doesn't have citizenship status. So intersectionality allows you to understand how many different layers of oppressions or different layers of privileges that adds to your benefit or against you.
Yeah.
And it's important because I feel like it's the two sides of the coin. Like it talks about what is to your benefit and what is not to your benefit.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I feel like what I have, like my takeaways from the movements have been that I have learned from different strategies and tools and practices and what has worked and what hasn't worked, but also like learn from those strategies and maybe use those strategies.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to, if I would take student movements, like what Mexican students have done in Mexico.
What have you done?
Like I'm just kind of giving you like kind of examples. Say for example, or like when the student tuition fee movement came up, and I think because of social media, there were protests that were happening in Mexico, in Quebec, in some places in the United States, then some in Europe. And people were probably getting informed through social media and learning from each other. And like what you were mentioning before is like they were using social media to their benefit to learn from each other, to come together. Like kind of a mutual sharing platform was created. So I feel like those are some of the positives when it comes to social movements. Those are like, and this is true that when it comes to different movements, they are not perfectly organized movements all the times. There are lots of movements and protests that we don't identify as movement and protest. You could take one example of the austerity movements that were happening or the Occupy struggles that were happening. And we didn't kind of identify them as movements at the time. But then after it happened, or say Arab Spring, after they happened, we identified them as movements and we learned from these movements. So I feel like it kind of has created, what it has done is that they have created this kind of incredible amount of knowledge to us, a knowledge base to us, from where we can take and we can learn and share and continue doing the good work, and like maybe social justice work, or like Levi was mentioning, liberatory work. And I think that is all I would say. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So,
Just make sure that it's still filming. Yeah, it is. Just make sure to touch the side or turn off.
okay.
Sorry.
So I'll try to be succinct here, but there's a quote.
Be a bit more simple.
Yeah, there's a quote. So I think this works on political, spiritual, and even economic levels. There's a pithy quote that Eduardo Galeano has, and he says that the world was born yearning to be a home for all. It's a beautiful sentiment. The world could be a home to all. Right now, it's not. spiritually that works. Any type of belief system is something that we should be willing to respect and allow to happen. Economically, the world could be a home to all. There's plenty of resources, there's plenty of space, plenty of housing. Everyone should have dignified, decent housing and be able to make a go of it. Politically, there's different ways of organizing societies, of engaging in decision making. People should be able to fully participate and have their voices heard. So the world could very much be a home to all politically as well. Those things aren't happening. I think a lot of revolutionary movements and thinkers identified the world is not a home to all. We need to change that. And in conjunction with that, another poetic statement by Arundhati Roy, another world is possible. On a quiet day, you can hear her breathing. It's a very poetic sentiment. We need to be building another world because the one that we currently are inhabiting is not working for everyone. It's defined by violence and injustice. And it's a beautiful kind of poetic statement. Let's build this another world and create something different. Similarly, Bell Hooks is thinking about what does it take to build another world. And oftentimes Bell Hooks' education, love, and care are the lifeblood of revolutionary change, or bringing better worlds into being that will be a home to all, where people can coexist in peaceful, harmonious ways, recognizing the sort of interdependency that I think works on a cosmological and spiritual level, but I think works on a political and economic level in a very material sense. And with respect to all of those things, seemingly the world has institutionalized the worst, arguably most evil things about humanity, so that we've incentivized and institutionalized ego and greed. And so we're going to live in a world that's defined by ego and greed. Whereas if you think about what the Zapatistas have called for, a revolutionary movement in southern Mexico, they've called for building a world where many worlds fit. And one of their most used axioms or mottos is everything for everyone, everything for everyone, nothing for us.
That's them.
It's a Zapatista statement.
I've heard it, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and that is signaling what? Everyone deserves a dignified, decent life, but it also is, there's an aspect of revolutionary humility in there, and I think this virtue of humility is not something that's incentivized. You're not rewarded in this world for being humble. You're rewarded for being hyper-competitive, egotistical,
For being a dog.
greed,
Yeah, for being rough, for being...
dog eat dog.
Dog eat dog.
Whereas instead of sort of thinking about,
Pig-headed.
what if everyone walked around with this in their hearts? Everything for everyone, nothing for us.
Selfless or
Yeah,
selfish.
yeah.
Of course.
In contrast to accumulate, gain as much as you can, fight other people down. It's like dog eat dog, cutthroat world.
Do you know what's interesting what you said? And because if you don't mention it before, we completely forgot about Mahatma Gandhi. I believe the devil made me forget that. He was the most successful revolutionary. I don't like being on camera much. He was the most successful as a revolutionary because he was very spiritual, and I think he realized that you had to disconnect from the world. Because I think look at Palestine, or anywhere you go, look at Palestine itself. And I'm not justifying what's happening there. But I'm saying if one side just said, forget it, it's not worth us losing our lives over land, we're going to walk away. But because of religion and delusion, what's happened is what you call it. They said you have to fight for the sacred land. You're going to get into heaven. But who said that? Really? Do we believe there's the creator, the divine force of those who do believe in a divine force would actually put land above humans, above blood, above creation? I don't think so. So it's like back to what I said. It's clearly two divisions, but it has many names. Do you get me? It's either you're a believer and you're not. Believe in whatever it is you believe in. Believe in freedom. You believe in spirituality. You believe there's a God. You believe in Mother Nature. Do you know what I mean? These are all good things to believe in, because you're going to fight for the greater cause, the benefit of human race, or you know what I mean, or creation or whatever. But we've got the other side that's always pulling us down. And you know what I think our biggest fault is? If we don't identify who the enemy really is, then we don't know who we're fighting. We're fighting in the dark. Do you know what I mean? So we can mention example. We could say it's I don't know. We could say it's Zionism. We can say it's The Muslims can say, oh, it's the Jewish people. The Jewish people can say, oh, it's the Muslims. But this is all like, it's insignificant, and it's a diversion tactics. And it's taking us away from exactly what you're saying. We need to build a new world because the world that we're in isn't working. And that's what like Mahatma Gandhi tried to do, isn't it? That's why he was killed. Malcolm X, he woke up. It was a realization, isn't it? He got killed. Martin Luther King sided with Malcolm X. He get killed. You see what I mean? But if enough of us stand up, you can't kill all of us. Eventually, and that's why we need to be unified. Exactly. But I know what? There's never been an awakening on such a scale as now. You never have seen like the students gather like this. You never. But it's all over the world. You go to police now. Like today, like I was watching a TikTok, and I reposted it like on my TikTok. It was funny. It was like Metropolitan Police, and they were calling out Richie Sunak, and they're saying, which is it's kind of slack because he's not the complete like enemy, if you want to call it, or the dark side or whatever. He's an idiot and a muppet, but I wouldn't say he's got any control. He's just a puppet who's at the front, who's basically sold himself out. But what the Metropolitan Police are saying that, look, we don't agree. We don't agree with what you're doing. We don't support you. We're here to save the people, protect the people. We're not here to save your agenda. Do you know what I mean? So businesses are waking up. They say we don't want to pay taxes if you're going to go. You know what I mean? Did you know like £1 can buy 100 bullets? And these one bullet, if just one bullet hits, one kills one child, kills one thingy. That's on the heads of the people. Whether you believe in there's a creator or not, whether you believe in Judgment Day or not, that's on your conscience. Karma then. If you don't believe in God, believe in karma. You could have come back and hit you. And I've seen many businesses that support Zionist movements, support the devils, whatever you want to call it, yeah. They're all suffering now. I've seen it. I've seen like this, my experience all over the world. Do you know what I mean? Even like I'm not a vegan, but I don't agree in like killing animals and eating them. I don't believe in that. And from my experience, I've experienced it myself. Whenever I eat meat, I end up constipated and sick. But when I don't eat meat, it doesn't happen. So okay, it comes down to simple. It's either oppression or whatever's the opposite. What's the opposite of oppression? Liberation. Yeah. So it's true. If you're oppressed, there's gonna be a comeback to that. So okay, I've based my whole life. I've built it on that. But now we've got a problem now. How do we rise up and become revolutionary? We've been told we have to be peaceful. It has to be through love. But it can't work like that. I personally think it can't work like that. But so what do? Do we go around killing the opposite side? That's wrong as well, isn't it? So I think the solution is exactly what you said. We have to make our own world. And we don't need them anymore. And let them suffer it. Let them destroy themselves and kill themselves. And save everybody who wants to live a peaceful life. We need to split the world. There's two sides. So let's have half of the world. They can have half of the world. And when they want to come and take our land, we'll move the other side. Isn't it?
It goes back to what the Palestinian resistance has said at the beginning of the war, where they said, yeah, while international and Western institutions are responsible for what's happening, only the free people of the world would stand up against this, which is actually what's currently happening right now. And they didn't define free people of the world, they just said it out there. And it's people doing encampments, confronting the states right now and authority in general. And going back to different words and how like there are like different people and so on and so forth. Since you're a Muslim, in Islam we say وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ قُرَى لِتَعَارَفُوا.
Yeah.
Which kind of means we made you villages so you know each other.
Differentiate.
Yeah.
Because if we were all the same, like I wouldn't, like say I go to my wife, she was like all the other women.
Yeah.
It'd be a problem, wouldn't it? So there's got to be unique differences. Which we
there,
yeah,
a Caribbean philosopher.
Yeah,
Talks about the universal, and he wants to live in a world in which the universal is defined by particulars.
yes,
Right. It's a very beautiful sentiment.
yeah,
We're all interconnected and experiencing some degree of oneness,
yeah,
but it should be celebrated, respected, and recognized that that oneness is diverse and pluralistic.
yeah.
And,
Uniqueness,
yeah.
uniqueness.
It's also that diversity. If you have, for example, let's take an example of a farm. If you have a mono agriculture in the farm and there is an illness, it will die.
Oh, yes.
But when there is like a permaculture with very diverse plants
Yeah.
that exist within that farm, they will protect each other. Sure, some of them could be sick, but you still have resources for the rest, and you have not lost everything.
Yeah, the ecosystem. That's what exactly what the ecosystem is.
And like we kind of very recently had worked on a paper which we call that not lines but circles. So by lines we meant pipelines. By circles we meant that life is ongoing. And that it's not just, but then we take this idea from the indigenous elders and or the indigenous perspective, where they argue that every life form in this universe has value, and like the ecosystem that you were mentioning, and that we cannot live in this universe without another, and that we are all interconnected. Like if you look into what DDT did, like so Rachel Carson and Caroline Merchant long back have argued, they were environmentalists who have argued about, and this was the kind of the new environmental conscious movement that came up around it, where people had, like scholars had argued from the work they were doing, they found how some of these chemicals or pesticides were killing a species and what impact it had on other species. But then they related or they linked it to mothers who were bearing babies eating those crops or fish or the species on which the chemicals were sprayed were having impacts. Like you were talking about the Vietnam War some time back, and it's not like that some of these events have one impact, but it has many impacts, and it's generational impacts that it may have.
Butterfly
And
effect.
it is, sorry?
Butterfly effect. Like a butterfly effect.
Yeah. And so so what I was kind of trying to get at is that one has to kind of think of the cohabitation of human, non-human species together. Like where I'm from, in like just in our neighborhood, there is this kind of rapid removal of plants, and the animals who were living in these forested regions, they don't have homes anymore because we have encroached into their lands. A lot of the times we argue that, well, the bears have encroached on our lands, but it's like it's we who have encroached on their lands. So kind of going back to the indigenous
Sorry,
perspective
can you define indigenous to those who don't know?
so I'm talking about communities who are original settlers of Canada here.
Original inhabitants.
Original inhabitants, not settlers. Yeah, the original inhabitants of Canada who lived in Canada, but like well, there are different words that are used by anthropologists across the world, like indigenous, tribal,
First peoples,
First people,
Who are the
First
people? What did they look
Nations.
like? What did they look like, the first people that were there?
I don't know how
If you
to
could describe
explain. I would like more than what they look like. I would think that what they stood for, like their customs or culture or how they understood life,
Yeah, what was it then? I was saying, what was it?
were very different from how we look at it. And like if I would reflect to what I started the talk with, like how land was not really seen as an object to be taken, but land was seen as a form of life.
Yeah.
And it was seen, and but then it also it like on one level that's how they kind of understood land, but on another level they connected with it also with the different practices that engage them with land, like the self-management of land, and how that related to their self-determination. But I'm kind of maybe going away from what Levi and you were arguing, is like how it's not just us humans, but I feel like today's time with climate change and how much climate action is needed, one has to be thinking of the cohabitation of species,
Yeah, it's,
like other species other than humans. Yeah. I don't know. Would you like?
So like, okay, so if you go into what you call it, it's interesting actually. So you go like, is it him or not? Who is canons in medicine? Is it Ibn Sina? I think it is. It's Ibn Sina, innit? Okay, Ibn Sina. He was a Muslim, medical practitioner. But see, with Western medicine, what you've done is they've took his book, but his book was like 3 parts. It made it 3 parts. The first part, the smallest part, was the physical aspects of maladies, sicknesses, and that. Then the second volume was mental illnesses, which was bigger than the physical, but not that big. Then the biggest volume is spiritual. And in the spiritual, it's like, if you want a summary of it, you want to summarize it. Okay, summarize it like this: you got a microcosm and a macrocosm. So what he said was that we were small universes inside a bigger universe, and then what happens is whatever we do on our actions, it will reflect into the universe, isn't it? Into the thingy. So whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, you believe in Mother Nature or believe in karma, it's the same kind of idea. Do you get me? So I'll give you an example. If a child loses the mum and dad, father, and they become orphaned, there'd be an effect internally in the child which would reflect externally in the atmosphere, in the cosmos. Do you see what I mean? And he wrote about this. But what happened was, probably like you say what happened after medieval times, and you got the science, the revolution, the science revolution. Not good, the history.
Enlightenment?
Yeah, they call it the Age of Enlightenment, which wasn't, was it?
No,
It's the opposite, yeah. You get me? They call it, they call it, hypocrites call Age of Enlightenment, where they took a light away. They got rid of the spiritual side. You see what I mean? Which is a problem. Because if you got rid of the spiritual side, then you just, then we've lost our connection to the rest of the world and that.
Yeah.
Do you get me? So you got like Native Americans, like I'm like, okay, so my background, I'm like, I go back to Yemen, but my ancestors go back to Native America. So Native, like the American Indian Native
Indigenous
Americans.
people.
Indigenous people.
What is now known as the U.S.
Yes, yeah. So that's what started me on my spirituality. Although originally like being Muslim and that, it led me that way. So I got to see my spiritual walkers, my guides and that.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And it's interesting that they were targeted and killed. Because if you target and kill them, get rid of them, then you disconnected us from our higher purpose and a higher understanding and the higher being and whatever. And that's it. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to hold you too long. We're really talking all day.
Thanks for the conversation, yeah.
Yeah, but it's been fun.
I do think, in addition to political transformation, spiritual transformation is in order as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you, Levi.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't catch your name, sorry.
Sitapa.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You want to say bye?
Bye.
That's it.
Elijah, bye.
Bye. You can say bye as well. That's it. Okay, bye-bye.